I've just had a telephone call from one of the community upstream who said that they thought the stream was running very dirty today. So we're interested in both the amount of sediment that's in the stream and the amount of total phosphorus in the stream, because we know that phosphate in the lake is a big problem, and over 80% of it comes down in these rain events during the year. In the ground itself, phosphate attaches to the clays. The clays are then disturbed through development activity, through farming, through flooding and erosion in the catchment. If you look back in history, there was a lot of activity to take out wetlands to help improve farming activities, which is what was done in those days. And these wetlands were soaks that soaked up all the nutrients before they arrived at the lake. And by taking out these wetlands, we've effectively created a lake which has become the soak hole for the catchment.
So it's accumulation probably of the last 60, 70 years that's brought it to this point. And I think it was well illustrated last February when we had 80 mils of rain and the phosphate came into the lake. Within about a week, this blue-green algae just exploded.
The lake was closed for close to a month. I think that was just a disaster for the community.
And that's the first time that's ever happened to this lake, and everybody suddenly realised that, yes, the lake is really in a bad way.
I've been working on Lake Hayes since 1995. This lake has a characteristic of strong recycling of the nutrients. And in the summertime, the lake splits into two different water masses. There's the surface water, which is warm, but there's this cold bottom layer. And when the oxygen goes down to zero in this lake, the phosphorus, which is bound in the sediments, gets released. So when the lake turns over in the autumn, we get this huge load of phosphorus coming to the surface into the warmer water where the algae just gobble it up. That's been part of the reason why the lake has been slow to recover. It's like a vicious cycle that it's really hard to break. The way to break it is to stop the nutrients getting into the lake in the first place.
We had a family home built here in 1952, and as kids, we just thoroughly enjoyed the lake. Swimming, windsurfing, sailing. We used to have a Percy perch fishing competition here. Wouldn't bother with that now. There has been a disconnect between ORC and QLDC. They all tend to try and avoid taking the responsibility.
The issues around water quality in Lake Hayes have been known for quite some time. It's a difficult one because I'm not sure what more we could do. I suppose it's one of those ones where it's no single agency's responsibility. This council deals with more of the land use consent activities, so you've got the development activities. The ORC deals with the water quality, the discharges, those sorts of things. There is a real onus on the developer though as well to manage their site.
I don't know in particular what sort of mitigations are required by the councils, but I understand from talking to some people is that generally they're quite minimal. You know, for the sake of the lake, that needs to change, or else we're going to end up with this lake going backwards rather than going forwards.
I think we've got to be very careful that any property development upstream of Lake Hayes is carefully monitored.
If we neglect the lake is just going to continue to suffer algal blooms. It's going to have bad water quality. I think the people of this area have expressed very clearly that that's not really acceptable.
This is what we sell to the world, and when we can't even look after a resource as precious as Lake Hayes, what sort of signal does that send to our visitors?
We've heard as representatives of the ORC very clearly that the community wants something done and it needs to start now. ORC has committed to a monitoring buoy for the lake, increased monitoring in terms of recreational swimming standards, the flushing project remediation, and then working with the community for a catchment study and catchment plan going forward.
So I'm just taking some water quality samples. We're just building up a database of the water quality for each of these sites. So we've got an ongoing record of how the stream's looking basically through time.
I just really like Lake Hayes because it's quite fun to come to. It's super fun to go and play with your friends.
It's such an amazing place. It always makes me sad that we talk about it as a resource. This is people's home. This is a place that they love and that they connect with. And I think we need more heart in the conversations.
The lake is a really important part of why we choose to live here. It's part of being a New Zealander, being able to spend time in these types of environments.
We want both QLDC and ORC to put a lot more focus on our lakes and some rules around the catchment of the lake in particular to ensure that the lake health improves.
So Lake Hayes has clearly been neglected, and how we look after the lake, it's just got to change.